Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is afternoon. I'm a little slow today getting going, but I thought today it would be a good time to do a recap of everything that has gone before, since I am about at the 12-month mark of my diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. I thought that it would be a good time to do this. As a recap, it was New Year's Eve of 2019 that I couldn't sleep all night because I had a pain right up in my upper abdomen that absolutely would not go away. And it lasted all night long. And that night I really didn't get any sleep because I was in pain. And it was one of those kind of pains where you're laying there going, do I really need to wake Lou up and ask him to take me into emergency, or do I just go and call 911 and have me taken in? Or shall I just lay here and die and see what happens? Anyway, so that's what I ended up doing, was just waiting until the morning. But it was New Year's Day, and I did call Native American Health, where I have been going for years and years. I love those people at Native American Health in downtown Sacramento. And so I called and I got the on-call nurse, and after listening to me, he advised me to go to the emergency room. And bless his heart, he called ahead, he made arrangements, so by the time Lou and I got over there, it was all taken care of. I had never had an appointment at an emergency room before, and so I thought that was just kind of nice. There was no waiting. It was just get me right in. And they started taking vitals and doing this and doing that and taking blood pressure and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And it took all day. They did, I think the last thing they did was the sonogram on me. And that's when they saw something and they decided that I needed to have a CT scan. And by that time, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I remember the doctor coming into the room where I was resting, and he looked very grave, and he said, "We found a mass on your pancreas." And so, armed with that information, I was sent on my way to do something about that. Well, as soon as he said I had a mass on my pancreas, I figured, what kind of a mass could that be? No doubt cancer. I had a friend that recently had passed away from pancreatic cancer, so the first thing I did was go on the internet and start reading about pancreatic cancer, and one of the things that I read was the pancreatic cancer diet. And on the diet, you cut out wheat, sugar, alcohol, white bread, white potatoes, white rice, pickles of all the crazy things. And I immediately went on that diet. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do. I knew immediately that I did not want to do chemo. I did not want to do surgery. I knew that. I saw what chemo had done to some of my friends, and one of my very dearest friends in the whole world got breast cancer, and they gave her too much chemo, and it killed a part of her brain, like right in here, and she lost the ability to read. She lost the ability to reason very well, and then it went into what was called systemic dementia, and it traveled from this part of her brain to the whole side of her brain. And within a couple of years after that treatment, she wasn't herself anymore. She could just barely function, and that's what happened. And then she passed away. And then that other friend of mine, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer stage 4, went immediately to chemo, and I don't think she lasted 2 months. Absolutely not. So that and other stories that I'd heard, I just didn't see where killing off my entire immune system, and I don't know how many of my organs, was really going to be of much help. So I knew I had to do something else. What's something else? Well, that was the question. We thought for a while that UC Davis had some other kind of program rather than just the chemosurgery regime. And we found out that they didn't. They, in fact, I think it was Dr. Bold that told me that if I didn't do anything, that I would have about a year to live. And so for a while I was one of their patients, but when they found out that I wasn't going to be doing the chemo, there really wasn't anything that they could do for me. And I remember the palliative doctor, I had such a hard time remembering her name and pronouncing her name. And she was not happy with me for my decision. I could tell that. And she told me, she said, well, if marijuana cured cancer, that nobody would have cancer anymore. And yeah, well, doctor, if all the studies hadn't been killed and destroyed, maybe, they would have realized that THC does do something for cancer. So that just kind of left us with no, like, now what do we do? And I remember we went to a neuropathist or neuropathy there in Roseville, and when I told them that I had the pancreatic cancer, they really couldn't do much for me at all. The vitamin C injections and that kind of stuff. I knew that that wasn't going to do it. This is a pretty tough cancer, and I think if vitamin C injections would have killed cancer, we would have known about it by now. So that was kind of out, and that kind of led us back to the RSO and the Rick Simpson oil, and then it became a matter of tracking it down and finding out where I could get it. And after a number of false starts, because I'd look it up on the internet who's making RSO or who's selling RSO, and finally came around to finding it at a therapeutic alternative in downtown Sacramento. And that was just kind of funny because years ago, one of my friends, Christine, used to live right across the alley from where they are. They're in a house down there, and she lived right across the alley, and she said, Linda, they opened up a marijuana place across the way. Like, oh, did they? That's kind of nice. But I'd never been in there. So I did go in, and I started talking to them, and I was introduced to Danny. Now, I think in my first videos, I called him Denny. I was just kind of, I was a little on the confused side. So much information, so much going on, and I can remember different people like Nita saying, well, it's been almost a month now, you're not doing anything? And I thought, well, I've got to find out what to do before I can jump in and do something. And in the meantime, she was telling me about the various mushrooms, and Travis and Becky were telling me about the broccoli sprouts. And so I went down to the therapeutic alternative, talked to Danny, talked to a number of people down there actually, found out that they had a cancer program, and that if I was going to do the Rick Simpson oil, and the protocol on that was 60 grams in 90 days, if I was going to do that, then I would have to work up to that amount. Because even though I had smoked marijuana, it's not the same. Not the same at all, because you ingest this, and it's a whole different ball game. So I started off with, I think, the Papa Barclays, and just slowly worked my way up to the gram a day. And I want to tell you, it was not easy. It just wasn't easy. Meantime, my friends and my family, everybody has been so good to me. Oh my gosh. Joanne, dear Joanne, she and Jim were over in the Holy Land at the time when I let her know that I had pancreatic cancer. And bless their hearts, I guess every church along the way, Joanne was lighting candles for me, saying prayers for me. She even put in, in the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem? You can put your little notes in there or something. And anyway, she even did that. So it's like all my bases were covered. I had everybody saying prayers for me. I had everybody giving me advice. And then But doing the actual protocol, and that was, like I say, it wasn't easy. Working your way up to a gram a day, stuffing that stuff in every day. Oh, um, but I don't believe it was near as bad as doing chemo. And in the meantime, one of my dear friends from Southern California was sending me these various video series, and she sent me some books. And one of the books that she sent me was these people who had survived cancer, and some of them had done chemo and some not, but basically they had all taken their own healing into their own hands. And I think it was one of the doctors, she said something that really, really, I identified with that so closely. She said, the cancer isn't like some foreign thing that just comes and invades you. That's your cells. Those are your cells. That is your body. And so you need to work with your body, not against it. And so keeping that in mind, I totally, totally agree with that. That is your body. Well, as I've mentioned before, the THC in the Rick Simpson oil, it's high THC. It's like 60 whatever to 40. The CBD, the THC is the stronger one. And the THC is what actually goes through your bloodstream, goes through your body, and seeks out the cells that have gone rogue. And it reprograms those cells to die. And so that's the way it works in the cancer. It reprograms the cells. It doesn't kill the cancer itself. It just reprograms these cells. And then the CBD part, the cannabis part, that keeps the cancer from spreading. You know, a lot of times cancer sends out feelers, it sends out seeds, it grows and it spreads. Well, this keeps it contained. And so I had the two things going on there. Meantime, like I say, I've got people praying for me. I have people sending me, like that sweet Charlene. She lives in Kansas, and she sent me the prettiest sunflower, a glass sunflower to hang in the window. And just, everybody was being so, so nice. And I felt very, very uplifted by the prayers and the kindness of all my friends and people who had been strangers, like Danny and the crew down at A Therapeutic Alternative. I didn't know them, but I certainly got to know them. As I got further into the treatment, I was less able to drive around. I could do some driving in the morning, and then I would take my dose, and then I was pretty much in for the day. Nobody would have wanted me on the roads, I'm sure. But then as the treatment progressed even further and I got more THC in me, I wasn't doing any driving anymore. So I'd say about the last 6 weeks of my treatment, I was not driving. And Lou would take me places. And as long as I had someone with me, I remember he took me down for Honored Elders Day, and I met Sharon down there, and Joanne, and Helen, and I saw Linda, and anyway, Sharon just kind of, took me by the arm, and she was kind of leading me around because your balance gets a little bit off, and you just don't quite feel yourself. But nothing so debilitating. It's not like I was, throwing up. I never got sick. And I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't nauseous. I wasn't completely uncomfortable. But the nights were rough. And I remember I was doing a lot of the night sweats. And I'd wake up in the morning, and sometimes I would have to change the sheets because I had sweat so much during the night. And I'm not really sure exactly what that was. I don't know if it was the RSO, because we were just in kind of uncharted waters there. Danny was a lot of help. He was a whole lot of help. But to talk to him, you had to make an appointment, and he's free on Mondays. And you can book an appointment, either go down and talk to him at the on H Street, or he will do a telephone conference with you. So I had a lot of input, but we were still kind of doing this on our own pretty much. We didn't have a doctor's guidance on this. This was me, Lou, Rick Simpson, and Danny, and everybody that I could find on the internet. And at the time, now I see a lot more on the internet about it, but at the time, I wasn't finding a whole lot of people that had successfully completed the protocol of the 60 grams in 90 days. And so I wasn't really sure exactly that what I was doing was right. And I remember I was about 30 grams in and thinking, oh God, I can't do anymore. And I told Lou, I said, oh, I don't think I can do this anymore. I think this is about it. And he said, well, just do that one today and see how you feel tomorrow. And so I did, and of course the next day, I've gone this far, I might as well go completely. And another thing was the availability of the RSO. Evidently, this stuff is in high demand. And there's 2 labs that were making it here in Northern California, and bless them, they have a cancer program. And so they're only charging $25 a gram rather than $70 a gram for the non-cancer program. So I got myself in that cancer program, and I was able to get it for the $25 a gram, but the availability wasn't always there either. So what they advised us to do was to call, and in the morning, and if they had it, they would reserve it, and you could get up to 8 grams at a pop, and they would reserve it until they closed that night at 9. If they didn't have it, well, they didn't have it, and they said, well, call again tomorrow. And so that's what we did. We'd call like maybe 3 days in a row or so, and then finally on the 4th day, like, okay, Linda, it did come in, and I was like, okay, well, reserve me 8 of them, because like I said, I was going through a gram a day there at the end. And this last time, now I'm up here, I'm not in Sacramento anymore, and so the last time that I got it, they didn't have it like the first 3 times or so that I called, and Lou was coming up from Los Angeles, and he said to get a hold of him, and he said he'd get me like 8 grams, which will last me another 8 months. So they did have it in. I think it came on like a Saturday or something, and he wasn't going to be in town until Monday, I believe. Hard to remember. So they kept it for me because I've been through the program. They knew, they know me, and so instead of having to pick it up by that night, they realized that we're out of town now, so they held it for me. I think it was either 2 or 3 days, but they tell me now, you call in the morning and make sure we still have it. You know, somebody didn't see it on the shelf and go, oh, well, this has been here since yesterday. So, because there's a lot of people that work there. And so I would call them in the morning and make sure that I still had it there and say, well, we'll be in on Tuesday or whatever day it was. And so that's how we worked that out. So that was my program. That's what I did. And how do I feel? Well, I was looking at YouTube videos talking about what happens to you when you get pancreatic cancer. And it throws you almost immediately into diabetes because your pancreas is the one that regulates your blood sugar. And if your pancreas isn't working right, then you know that the blood sugar isn't going to be right. So it throws you immediately into diabetes. And then if it's blocking any bile ducts, it immediately puts you into jaundice, so you start turning yellow. Your eyeballs get a lovely shade of bright yellow. Your fingernails, everything turns bright yellow. And the pain. I'm reading that the pain is absolutely unbearable. And I remember this one Chinese doctor was explaining it, and he didn't pull any punches. And I remember reading that or watching that and going, no, nope, 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 nope. Not going to do that, not going to do that. And so I will take my RSO, because at that point I realized that that was about the only hope that I had, was to do the RSO. Nothing else was going to work. So, and then I remember Dr. Bold telling me, okay, we're going to do chemo on you to shrink the tumor. And then once it's shrunk, then we do surgery. And the surgery is called the Whipple surgery. And in the Whipple surgery takes out most of your pancreas, your gallbladder, part of your stomach, part of your intestine. What you're left with is basically not a lot, not a whole lot. And I thought, I can't do that to myself. I don't want to do that to my body. Good God. And so it was like, fingers crossed that this is going to work. Well, as none of these things happened, and I wasn't turning yellow, and I wasn't in terrible pain, and everything seemed to be digesting. I did get the digestive enzymes. I was using those. I'm not using those anymore. I'm digesting fine now. So none of those things happened, so I figured, okay, I must be on the right track. And then I think it was in June, I went in and had another C-scan, and that showed that the tumor had not grown at all. It was the same size, and I thought, good, that's really good. It hasn't gotten any larger. And so that was a good sign right there. And then I'm, like another C-scan, no. I was advised to go get another MRI because the C-scan does put some kind of radioactive dye into your system, and I didn't want to do that. And I figured twice is enough. And so, but I haven't been back. There's been no reason to go back. And so I'm just kind of waiting to see, I'm fine. I feel fine. I'm exercising. I'm still on the pancreatic cancer diet. That I probably will stay on for the rest of my life. Now, I did have regular, goodies on Thanksgiving, eat a little bit of everything on Thanksgiving, and I plan to do that on Christmas too, but I'm not overdoing it on the sugar. And I haven't had any desire for a glass of wine or anything. I just don't want to jolt my pancreas at all. I figured she's been through enough. That was another thing that took me through so much also, was all the meditation that I did. Steve Nobel, that's how you pronounce his last name too. Boy, my pronunciations, jeez. Anyway, his last name was Nobel. And Aaron Doughty and Ralph Smart, and there's so many people that I follow on YouTube and do the meditations and the guided meditations, and then the Dong Quai exercises and the walking and the going up the hills. And so I feel normal. I feel pretty darn normal. I'm 76. I'll be 77 in a couple of months. So what can I say on that? I think I'm okay. I really think I'm okay. I still take the glutathione, and I was at the health food store in Jackson, and I was talking to this really nice lady in there. I explained to her why I was in there, what I was getting, and I told her about having pancreatic cancer and doing the Rick Simpson, and she kind of stood back and she smiled at me and she says, I'm an empath. And she said, I just scanned your body, and she said, I did not see any cancer. No cancer. So there it is. There it is. You got it. I mean, who needs an MRI when you got an empath? No, I'm basically going on how I feel. And I feel decent. I feel very decent. And I'm looking forward to Christmas. I've been doing a little Christmas crafts. I've been going into Ione to Castle Antiques on Friday and Saturday, and I've been their palm reader. And they fixed me up in a cute little nook in there, and I put my candles and crystals and my salt lamp, and I do the palm reading in there, and I got a new deck of tarot cards. They're not so scary looking as my other ones. I got the goddess ones, and I'm going to be doing the tarot readings too. So I've got myself a little thing going on, and I'm meeting all kinds of nice people, and I'm really enjoying it up here. And God, I love the fact that I'm always running into my grandchildren and my children up here. And I go into Safeway, and I've got my darling Katie in there, and then I'm doing something, I hear a horn honking outside, a big horn. Look out there, see a fire truck. Oh my God, that's Tyler out there. Yeah, they were looking for somebody who'd had a heart attack or something around here, and they couldn't, people, you need to put your addresses so people in ambulances and fire trucks can read your address and not make them go around the whole park looking for you. Anyway, I love that. I just absolutely love that. It's so it's a comfort. It's really a comfort. And of course, living here with Peggy and Ron is very comforting also. It's very pleasant, it's quiet, and it's no pressure. Absolutely no pressure at all. And that I am totally, totally enjoying it. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas. I think we're going to have a really nice Christmas. We're going to go over to Ron's son and his wife, Christy. Ronnie and Christy, we're going to go over there for Christmas dinner. And of course, we'll see more grandchildren. And it's fun. It's just really a lot of fun. And I'm hoping that you have a wonderful Christmas too. And until next month, I will say adios, goodbye. And